Good day. This is the third part of the short video series for Twitter, where I recall some of my memories as a member of the African National Congress over the past 41 years. Today I want to share a memory from detention, a painful, difficult and bitter memory, but one that I believe will help us to also appreciate some of the challenges that we are faced with today. I was 23 and so was my then fiancée, Jansie Lawrence, when we were detained in the early morning hours of the 23rd of August 1983 at our student house in Berea, Johannesburg. We woke up looking down the barrels of R1 machine guns. The security police had already entered the premises and they were ransacking it. After literally taking the house apart, they drove me and Jansie to the notorious John Vorster Square, which was then the headquarters of the security police. As we entered John Vorster Square, we entered a world of hell, of solitary confinement and detention without trial, of torture and intensive interrogation. Unbeknown to us, two fellow comrades, Comrade Obert Papela and Comrade Catherine Hunter, had also been detained. The memory I want to recollect goes back to a couple of weeks of having been in that hell of John Vorster Square. I was taken up to the 10th floor, the same floor where so many fellow comrades had been detained, interrogated and tortured, from where Ahmed Timur plunged to his death. In an office that was apparently shared by Warrant Officer Nick Dietlefs and a certain Captain van Niekerk, I was slapped around again. Something I'd almost become used to because it was always part of the interrogations. Then Dietlefs took a tape recorder from a drawer in his desk, pushed the button, and suddenly the room was filled with Jansie's crying voice. She was singing the old apartheid national anthem, Die Stem, singing and crying. What had apparently happened was that Dietlefs had subjected Jansie to days of sleep deprivation and torture. What he did to her, I do not want to share here because I want to respect her privacy. But the result I could hear in the terror, in the pain, in the crying of her voice. Dietlefs played that recording of Jansie singing the stem in order to try and break me. He said to me, "You see, you better start talking." And then fired off again the many questions that he had fired so many times before during interrogation sessions at me. I'm proud to say that I did not break, although I came very close to breaking. That I did not share any information that compromised any of our operations or any comrades. But the pain of what I experienced that day and the pain with which I went back to my detention cell almost destroyed me. It was those memories that I recalled many years later in a meeting of the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress, when we were discussing the new anthem that President Nelson Mandela was proposing. He had asked the composer of that new anthem, Professor Khumalo, to come and play it to us in the NEC. It was a combination of Nkosi Sikelel' Africa, and the last part of the anthem came from the stem. After I listened to it, when we were given a chance to speak, I stood up and recollected my memories of what the stem means for me. And I told the National Executive Committee that I would never be able to sing the stem, or even a part of the stem, without recollecting what had happened to Yancy, to me, to Obed Papela and Catherine Hunter during our detention period. I could see that those memories that I recollected and shared with my fellow NEC members had an impact on how they were thinking about adopting this hybrid of two national anthems. President Mandela realized what was happening. He stood up and said, "Let's have some tea," and called for a break. As I was walking out of the meeting, he called me. He said to me, "My boy," as I've said before, he always called me my boy, "I thought you would understand what I'm trying to do with this anthem. Now, go and have tea. But when you come back, I do not want to hear a word from you." I followed the instruction of my leader. When the meeting commenced, I kept quiet. Eventually, the hybrid anthem that we now have as our national anthem was accepted by the NEC and then went through all the correct political processes to become the anthem of our Republic of South Africa. I understand what Madiba was trying to do. But to be honest, even up to this day, when we sing the national anthem, I cannot sing the last part, which is the part of the step. When that part comes, I keep quiet. Now, what does that mean for us in South Africa today? I think it is an understanding that we made painful compromises in order to get to the point where we could have our democracy. That we made huge compromises to try and accommodate especially the white community, part of their historical heritage and culture. I believe personally that we made too many compromises. I believe that those compromises has costed us years of sacrifice, of pain, and of exploitation for the majority of Black, especially African South Africans. The anthem that we have today is simply a symbol, simply an example of the compromises we made. But unfortunately, those well-meant compromises have not been reciprocated by the majority in the white community. That's why today we still have the arrogance of whites believing that they can control the South African economy and continue to do so. While we have the blatant and open racism that is being expressed on social media by so many whites. And why we have the poster boy of white reactionaries, F.W. de Klerk, refusing to accept that apartheid was indeed a crime against humanity. The time had come for us to recall those memories of the sacrifices that we made in the past, of the pain, of the torture, of the killings. The time had come for us to say that enough is enough. We cannot any longer accommodate the de Klerks and all of those who follow him and his ilk. I have another memory from detention. That was when the security police officer who took me from my cell to the showers, where I was allowed to shower once a day, made the mistake of bringing Comrade Obed Papela at the same time to those showers. Both of us had been severely tortured. As we walked into those showers, we were both bleeding. I can still recall the marks on Comrade Orbit's face and on his body. We opened the shower taps and washed the blood of our battered bodies. And as we washed it, the blood came from both showers together in the drain and mixed. The blood of two comrades who were fighting together, the one white, the other black, but both committed South Africans. Those are the memories we must continue to share. Those are the memories that must force us to say, we need to have not a half-baked liberation, not just the democratic vote, important as it is, but we need to have full liberation, because so many people sacrificed so much for the freedom that we have now, but which is still only partial. I recall Comrade Orbit's expression in his face that day. It was one of pain, but it was also one of solidarity. I recall Comrade Jansi and her voice on that tape recording. I also recall the shouting voice of Nick Dietlefs, swearing at me, calling me a kafir puti, insulting me, beating me up. And I remember. In recent weeks, the very same warrant officer, Nick Dietlefs, went to the Agate inquest and denied that he had tortured me. He lied blatantly. Not only about the manner in which he tortured me and he tortured Jansi, but also about how he tortured many other comrades. How he lied in the first inquest into the death of Comrade Neil Agate. He was eventually exposed now during cross-examination. He acknowledged that he lied. He said he did so in order to protect his colleagues. Now, I think there's a lesson in all of this. These people have not changed. They will still continue to lie and protect themselves. They do not regret what they had done. They do not regret the overall havoc that apartheid had caused to the people of South Africa. On a personal level, they do not regret the pain that they have inflicted on many of us as detainees. Now, surely, the time had come for us to stop making any common cause with them. Surely the time had come for us to say, whatever compromises we made, which has costed the majority of South Africans their economic liberation, which has costed so many people simple, basic economic growth and empowerment, has to come to an end. And that, I believe, is the lesson that these experiences from detention should share with us today. Enough is enough. Now the time has come, not to compromise, not to try and build alliances with racists, but to understand where our true liberation lies. And that lies with the majority of oppressed and continuing to be poor South Africans. And it lies with following policies, implementing policies that will truly liberate them. Following the policies that had been adopted at the 54th National Conference of the African National Congress. Those policies for radical economic transformation, for the expropriation of land without compensation, for the nationalization of the Reserve Bank, for the transformation of our financial services sector so that it will truly serve the majority of the people in South Africa. Nick Deetliffs, Captain van die Kerk, F.W. de Klerk, and all the rest of them do not deserve, do not warrant our continuing reaching out to them. They must reach the end of the road. And for us, the true road, the long walk to true freedom must start now. I thank you for listening. Next week, I will return with another memory.